I didn't before. When did I fall in love? What night? Which day? When did I first begin to feel this way? How could the moment pass unfelt, ignored? Where was the blinding flash? Where was the crashing chord? When did I fall in love? I can't recall. Not that it matters at all. It doesn't matter when or why or how, as long as I love him now. Out of the house 10 seconds and I miss him. I miss him more with each goodbye. Out of the house 10 seconds and I miss him. And no one's more astounded than I never once pretended that I loved you. When did it start? This change of heart. When did I fall in love? What night? Which day? When did I first begin to feel this way? How could the moment pass unfelt, ignored? Where was the blinding flash? Where was the crashing chord? When did I fall in love? I can't recall. Not that it matters at all. It doesn't matter when or why or how, as long as I
Okay. We're going to chat for a few numbers. So, Audra, yeah, why don't you tell everybody why my water bottle looks like this?
Seth and I were backstage just now, getting ready to go on stage, and they told us, okay, it's places or whatever, get ready to go. And Seth said, oh, I just need to get a tissue out of the bathroom. And he had his water in his hand, and then the next thing I hear is boom, 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 and I turn around and all I see are Seth's feet just on the ground, and the rest of them completely face forward and looking.
Oh, you hear the sympathy. Just keep going.
He landed with his hand in the toilet.
There's an 8-inch step up into the bathroom. How normal. Again,
And I had the most infantile, terrible reaction of just all I could do was laugh at him. I couldn't help him at all. But I literally had to calm myself down.
You're crazy laughing. Okay, so so speaking of falling, let's just talk for a second about my reaction when you fall. So, Audra McDonald is notorious for her signature passing out, which sounds like, oh sure, she gets nervous. No, flat out passing out, and I've witnessed it. How many times I've there?
2, 3, 4.
I think 4. A solid 4.
4 times.
So first was at an audition, I think, for the center.
No, for a callback for Showboat when I put on all the white pancake makeup to try and look like I was white.
That would make me pass out. The second one was in Fresno, where she flew me out. She's supposed to do this we've known each other for a long time. She mentioned it in the show, and she was doing a concert in Fresno, and she wanted a more sassy pianist. So she flew me out, and it was in the middle of the concert, right? And you were like,
Yeah.
And it wasn't a full fall, it was more like, And then the last one was at Carnegie Hall rehearsal.
No, not Carnegie Hall.
Not Carnegie Hall. Where was it?
The Pierre Hotel.
Pierre Hotel. Rehearsal. And so I already knew your reputation that once you gets anxiety and nervous, you pass out. So during rehearsal, I was like, don't pass out. So we were doing Down with Love, finished the number, and I heard the same sound that Audra heard without the sound of the toilet. But I heard, like, bum, jankety gum. And there was a full fall, like, bagong, gang. So, Audra, what happened?
I had passed out. I don't remember. You didn't. I don't know.
Well, essentially what happens is she gets so nervous that, like, the blood stops going towards your head.
The blood stops going to my head, and my body just shuts down and says, "Oh, we'll deal with this later. Let's take a nap."
So she felt like face. That was face first, right? That first one.
No, I landed on my chin because I had to go get stitches. Remember, this is the first one. I got stitches, and then we just were like, "I'll be fine. I'll be fine." So,
and it was like a big salute, like Rosie O'Donnell, lady of the stage, and it was like all these Broadway people and Audra, and I was like, if you start feeling, I'm sorry, I guess there's probably no sympathy. I'm like, if you feel like you're gonna faint, I'm like, just grab onto a chair. She's like, I sure will. So we do the show that night, finished Sound of Love. This time she fainted again, but she didn't have the courtesy to faint on stage. Tell me where you fainted.
I fainted off. My feet were still on the stage. Fainted off the stage onto the floor. I guess onto Rosie's table. I broke the fall with my face.
Onto Rosie's table. Now the thing about Rosie's like, what a wonderful. Coming towards her. Ka-clanka! Now, Audra was mad at me because because I quote didn't help her. But essentially what happened was, I had a horrible image of watching Audra fall on my head, and it was such a horrifying image that when I saw her start falling again, I knew that the length between the piano and her wasn't far enough for me to help her. So I was like, I can't help her, I don't want to see the image. So I turned away. No, it wasn't an angry turn away, it was like, I cannot view this. So that's what she's mad about. So what happened? So after you fell on Rosie's table, what happened next?
I heard the words, Audra, can you hear me? And I remember thinking, oh, I was back in my room or something, back at home, and then I heard, Audra, can you hear me? I am Mary Tyler Moore's husband, and I'm a doctor. And I remember I had to open my eyes and I'm like, why? And why are you giving me your credentials? I don't know who you are, and I don't really care, and what's the point? And then I opened my eyes and he said, how many fingers am I holding up? And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I look up and I see Rosie kind of looking at me crying. And then they took me to the hospital.
Okay, so by the way, that was the beginning of the show. So they take Audra to the hospital, the whole audience is devastated, and then they're like, ladies and gentlemen, the comedy of Audra Martin. So she was like, I cannot believe everyone in the audience was like, devastated. So poor Andrea had to be like, people ask me why I'm not dating. It was a nightmare. But after that, then I feel like it hasn't happened to me since. Like, how did you fix it? Like, you learned how to
When I was in the hospital, we figured out what was going on with me, and they put me on medication. They did all these crazy tests in this dungeon of New York Presbyterian Hospital. These weird tests where they strapped me to a table and put the electrodes into my heart and stimulated my heart and made me pass out. But while strapped to a table, they kept tilting the table in different directions. And the whole idea was to try and get me passed out and then study what happens to my body when it does.
Wow!
And they figured that's how they were able to diagnose it and give me medication. So.
Well, it worked. Okay, so our next song. I don't even know what it is actually. I don't think you
I do.
You know what it is? Okay.
Yes. Can I stay here and sing?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. This is a song that I sing a lot. Written by a very talented composer, Tony Award-winning composer named Mr. Jason Robert Brown. It's a song I love and I always sing it, so I'm going to sing it again. I met a man without a dollar to his name, who had no traits of any value but his smile. I met a man who had no yearning or claim to fame, who was content to let life pass for a while. And I was sure that all I ever wanted was a life like the movie stars led. And he kissed me right here, and he said, I'll give you stars and the moon and a soul to guide you, and a promise I'll never go. I'll give you hope to bring out all the life inside you, and the strength that'll help you grow. I'll give you truth and a future that's 20 times better than any Hollywood plot. And if I, rather have a yacht. My God, I'll never have the moon. So this next song is a song that I first learned when I was about 9 years old, and I then fast forward 500 years to when I'm 41, and I was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, working on the out-of-town tryout of Porgy and Bess, and I was also looking for material for my new tour, and I was trying to think of songs that'd be good to sing, and this song popped into my head as a possibility, and I thought, I should put that in the back of my head. That might be a good song to add to my new tour. And then one day I was walking to rehearsal. I was going to stop at the place that I spent almost as much time as I spent at the theater while I was in Cambridge, and that's Chipotle, and I was on my way there first. And I got to the door, and standing in front of the door was this elderly man. He must have been, he was like late 80s, maybe pushing 90. And he had on a tie-dye shirt, a tie-dye bandana. He had on tennis shoes and long white socks. He had a bunch of posters behind him of movie stars from the 30s and 40s. And he had a sign that said, "Be kind to street people." And he had a karaoke machine. And he was singing the song that I'd been thinking about. I was stunned. So I stood there and I listened to him. And when he was done, I said, "Dude, that was great. That was amazing. That was great." And that was fantastic. And he said, "Well, why do you know that song?" And I said, "Well, it's a great song. That's why I know that song." He goes, "Well, I know that song because it was very popular during World War II. I know. I served in World War II." And I said, "Well, dude, it's a great song, and you're amazing." And I knew at that moment I had to add it to my repertoire. So I'm going to sing it now, and I'm going to sing it to honor him in the same key that he sang it in. And that is incredibly impressive for one of us. My buddy,
there more? Isn't there more to the story?
Oh yes, at the end of the story, at the end of the song, the man, my great friend, he sang it in that key, first of all. He sang it in that octave. And at the end, he sang, "Your body, this is your..." It was amazing. So if you're ever in Cambridge, Harvard Square, Chipotle, please look for my buddy. He's still there. It was amazing. He sang it like 17 times slower than what we just did. I'm sure I was late to rehearsal.
Okay, so there's so many theater wannabes in the house, and everyone knows you're a big Broadway star, but tell them what the craziness is that before you're a Broadway star, you had the nerve to be studying classical music. What were you thinking and why?
I was studying classical music because I wanted to move to New York, and I auditioned for Juilliard thinking, well, I know in the movie Fame, they're all dancing in front of the fountain, and they're auditioning for Broadway shows, and I'm sure that's right where Juilliard is. I'm sure that's what it'll be like. And so I auditioned, and I got in, and I got there, and that's not what it was.
Because I went to Oberlin, and there was like no respect for Broadway but classical music. So it was the same thing at Juilliard?
Yeah, it was the same thing at Juilliard. No, not. It was just Broadway music was huge, but it's not what you do, and it's not what you're supposed to sing, and it's dangerous, and
dangerous why?
Just vocally, you shouldn't do that. Shh, no, you shouldn't do that, and it just was wrong. It was, I don't know. It was just like being ghetto. I don't know. It was just completely wrong for them.
But how did you do Broadway on the side? Because over the summer you did Broadway.
I snuck out. I would sneak. My teacher said you have to go to a classical program during the summer, and I said okay. And then I went and I auditioned for Summer Stock, and I got cast in Evita and Man of La Mancha, and I went and did that instead. And then came back the next.
What did you tell her?
I went and auditioned for Summer Stock, and I did that. And she was like, "That's not what you're supposed to be doing." And I said, "Oh, I didn't
hear you the
first
time?
I don't know what. I came back, just busted too, vocally busted. So I was singing El Danza and screaming, I was born in a ditch by a mother. But I was having the time of my life and feeling talented for once, because at Juilliard you don't feel talented, you feel terrible the whole time you're there. You do. They kind of rip you to shreds, what they're supposed to, and then they build you back up in a different way. But
did they ever build you back up?
no, I just left.
So you had the tearing down part.
Yeah, they forgot the other part. So.
Did it help you though in the long run having that kind of training?
Yes. I never thought that classical music would come to anything for me, but as it turns out, it ended up sort of saving me. I have a technique that I can sort of rely on, and it helped me to find sort of my whole voice. And I think up until that point, I was only using part of my voice, and I didn't realize that I had a classical voice, and they helped me find that. And so now, I've learned how to sort of incorporate it all into just what's my sound. And one of the things I say to young singers is just go out there and sing like you. Don't sing like anybody else. Don't try and imitate anybody else. Sing like you. That's the one unique thing that is missing in the world, is your voice. And so what I've learned is to accept my voice and embrace my voice and sing with my voice and not try and sound like anybody else. Whereas before I was trying to sound like other people.
Did it help you with Porgy and Bess? That's your most operatic role.
Absolutely, and I learned all about Porgy and Bess. I told you guys this yesterday. I was at Juilliard. Yeah, I studied. I knew about it before, but I studied it like a mad woman, just on my own, thinking this is a classical piece that I could possibly do.
But Porgy and Bess is considered an opera, and if you don't know, opera people do 2 performances a week, and then it's 3 weeks off. So how did you do 8 shows a week when it was really an operatic piece?
It almost killed me. It's not supposed to be sung 8 times a week. And when Porgy and Bess first opened on Broadway, they didn't do an 8-show-a-week schedule. It opened.
You mean back in the 30s?
Back in the 30s when it opened, there was not an 8-show-a-week schedule. So there's been no Bess that's actually done 8 shows a week.
Except for Audra McDonald?
Except for Audra McDonald, I killed her. No, it's not a good thing, it almost killed me. So.
Yeah, but you won the Tony, so it all worked out.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Put the Tony on my dream.
He's like, do that. What's the word? schedule when you're doing a Broadway show? Are you like, I always go to bed at this time, or I don't this, or I don't that?
It's Broadway schedule is very difficult. You do 8 shows a week, right? So you're basically spending your day getting ready for your show at night. You have to be very quiet, you can't sing a lot, you can't talk a lot, you just have to protect your voice. You have to make sure that you're warmed up and that physically you're okay. And then if you couple that with being a parent, like me and my husband, Will, are parents of 3 children out there, 2 of whom are maybe slightly asleep right now, but that's okay. But it's difficult. So Will and I will do shows that are over at like 11 o'clock at night. We get home by 11:30 or so, or even later, sometimes midnight. And then we get up at 6 to get them to school. And so you only have like 5 hours of sleep or so, and then like on Wednesdays, that was the killer for us because we have to go off and do our shows after getting up at 6 to get our kids to school. So it's a vicious cycle of like no sleep, basically. So
We cut to yesterday, took a nap in the middle of the day. What was that about, Audra?
I took a disco nap. I sure did, and then we got up at 10 o'clock and had dinner. Is that terrible? Supposed to do on this cruise.
I guess a plus. Okay, so speaking of Will, here's a song about your ex-boyfriend.
What? Prior to Will, okay. This is a song that has a really kind of fun story at the end that I'll tell you about.